Our resident commentator on the passing scene is award-winning author Harlan Ellison. When we call him award-winning, that's an understatement. Harlan has won more awards for his 62 books, more than 1,700 stories, articles, essays, and columns than any other living fantasist. His current books are Minefields, Mephisto and Onyx, and I, Robot Screenplay, based on concepts by Isaac Asimov.
Over the last year and a half, through my various commentaries, I've made some errors. I've thrown some points out to be reposted by you all, and this is the cleanup. The first one comes from Professor James Gunn, the well-known author and editor and anthologist, who said, by the way, in the re-showing of your piece about awards shown Sunday, you may already have learned that Hugo Gernsback came from Luxembourg. I made an error. I said that it was Switzerland. Jim Gunn, thank you very much. Hugo Gernsback indeed came from Luxembourg. Matt Bodkin asked my opinion on popular writers or artists' work being continued after their death by others. I don't think an awful lot of it. I don't think that we need anybody else writing other Sherlock Holmes stories. Conan Doyle did very well by himself. I don't really think we need other people writing Raymond Chandler imitations. I don't think there's much to that kind of thing. I think it's grave robbing. I think collaboration is one thing, as done by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth, but I think using the creations of other writers or artists after they're gone is digging them up and standing them up for people to grin at. That takes care of that one. Now, many of you had heard that there was an organization of pusillanimous, pustulant creatures who had formed an organization called Enemies of Ellison. That is true. They could not take me on alone, so they ganged up. They have been getting a lot of bad play as a result of this. And one of the things that has happened is that a group called Friends of Ellison has been formed. And you need not pay any money at all, as opposed to this other group that charges you $19 for scurrilous remarks about me. And all you have to do is send them an anecdote about something decent and kind I've done, and they will send you this wonderful handsome button. That takes care of that. Now, there were a couple of people who were objecting to my working on Babylon 5 because I had said that I wouldn't work on any show in which you heard the sound of spaceships zipping past or the sound of explosions in space, because that was bad science. Well, J. Michael Straczynski, Joe Straczynski, the producer, is a somewhat better scientist than I. He's not a very good one, but he's better than I. And so he appealed on the internet, those of you who have no lives and sit there all night long, punching around with the internet. And he got answers from all kinds of wonderful people, like Rick Tumlin and even Freeman Dyson, the inventor of the Dyson sphere. And they say such things as, sound is a term we use to ID a sensory report we gather through our tympanic system relating to a very narrow band of frequencies. Vibrations are gathered through the skin. Either way, it requires a medium, meaning like air, to be transmitted. I said, would you hear sound in space? The sound of a ship passing by would be silent at first. As the exhaust of the other ship begins to hit your ship, you would be very unlikely to hear any tones. That is, the hum of the other ship's engine would be lost due to the inability of the sparse gases of its exhaust to propagate sound. And it goes on. You would, however, hear wind. In fact, you would likely hear a faint sound of wind anytime you move. This was news to me. I thought space was silent. I thought there was nothing but bad science in these movies. Well, all of this was responses to Joe's request, would there be sound in space? And the last little piece that I wanted to read to you, because apparently you will be able to hear some things, and they have adjusted the sound on Babylon 5 accordingly to be scientifically accurate. Even a ship just passing by would create a disturbance in the plasma. If the ship was moving supersonically, which essentially means the same as it does in the atmosphere, although it's a little more complicated, it would also create a shockwave and a sonic boom. An ordinary microphone stuck out in space would pick up and translate a lot of these waves into sound. Now, that's Steve Smith from the High Altitude Observatory. So, I stand corrected. You would hear some sound in space, and I'm glad I'm working on Babylon 5, where there is a little sound in space. We have here on America Online any number of items that were sent along about my performance here, but there's somebody named, he calls himself the Mighty Mick. M-I-K, the Mighty Mick. I have no idea who this person is, but he calls me a Luddite because I have pointed out that there are a bunch of jamooks on the cybernet bulletin boards who sit around all night babbling at each other. And he says, it seems to be, who will drag Ellison kicking and screaming into the 21st century? Yo mama will drag me, Mr. Mick. that pretty much takes care of all of the things I had to take care of today. I've tugged my forelock about as much as I could. Send in your questions. I know the answer to everything except two things in the universe, as we all know. Been my pleasure talking to you. Do come again next week. Yes, here am I, a mere tool of commercial interests. The network has said to me, why don't you do a show in which you show us things that people should buy? Some of the toys that you're looking at and buying these days. And I'm saying this show provides me with very little graft, folks. I don't get any real high-ticket items. But I'll show you a few things that are worth spending your money on, because as that great American Ronald Reagan said, the business of America is business. Of course, he stole that from Calvin Coolidge, but who am I to cavil? Here is a wonderful thing that I'm actually not showing you because I told Jeff Killian that I wanted to show it on this show, and the next thing I knew it was being shown on SF Trader. You can buy it through SF Trader on this here network, but it is a reproduction of the original Day the Earth Stood Still poster. It is quite beautiful. These are published by a publishing company in New York called NBM. These are the Ray Bradbury Chronicles, and there are 6 volumes of them so far. And these are Bradbury stories adapted and illustrated by the best in the business. And let me show you the kind of thing that they are. For instance, here is an adaptation of Ray Bradbury's wonderful story, A Sound of Thunder. They go for $19.95 in hardcover. They got numbered ones that are you know, more expensive, but these are very, very nice. I urge you to get these. This is also done by NBM. They've only done 2 volumes of this so far. It's the Fairy Tales of Oscar Wilde, illustrated by the superb artist P. Craig Russell. And this is volume 1, this is volume 2. And let me show you a page out of this. This is a story called The Selfish Giant. Look at this. Ah, is this beautiful? These are only $15.95 a piece. That's NBM. Topps, that makes the trading cards, did a shadow set for the movie. Now these are called uncut sheets. These are the cards on the sheets before they cut them up. So you can't get them this way, but you'll get the sheets themselves. Now the set is 90 cards, and most of them, can you see this down here? Can you shoot that over there? Most of them are the movie scenes, which are okay. They're okay. But in between, they've got art. They've commissioned real art by various comic book artists of the shadow. It's beautiful stuff. And there's a full extra set of these, and these are the covers done by Jim Steranko for the shadow paperbacks that he did in the 80s. And on the backs of the cards, oh, you're going to love this. Look at this, look at this. Here's Steranko. Of course, this was Steranko when he was about 9 years old. He's my age now. And this is the woman who played Margot Lane on the radio. And this is the guy who created the Shadow, Walter Gibson. Well, he didn't actually create him, but he wrote the Shadow novels. And that's Brett Morrison, who played the Shadow on radio in the 1940s, and Orson Welles. These are the backs of the cards. It's a very, very nice set. Oh, you're going to love this. This is the latest of the Neil Gaiman Sandman graphic novels. This one is called Brief Lives. These are the 2 Sandman sculptures. This one is available now, and you can buy it if you want. Very expensive. You'll have to hock your house. This one is a prototype of the one that's forthcoming. It'll be out around Christmas of this year, 1994, and it is based on the P. Craig Russell art from the Arabian Nights edition of the Sandman. This one I got, it's a prototype that was given to me by Neil at a banquet dinner that was done for me. Now, excuse me, would you come over here? Yes. Now, I'm going to go away now. I'm going to leave you here to look at these, and I'll see you next week with some more good things like these books here. Take care of yourself. This is the new collection of short stories, 10 short stories by Alexander Jablakov. Arkham House, A-R-K-H-A-M, Arkham House, publishing house, a small house. Now, one of the keynotes of an Arkham House book is that they're beautiful. They're just put together beautifully. If you ever could just hold one and see, it's got this wonderful binding and head and tail bands, and absolutely fabulous illustrations in this particular book by J.K. Potter. These are mostly stories of the near future, and The Breath of Suspension is a wonderful book, but you're not going to be able to buy it through most bookstores. You're going to have to order it from Arkham House, and all you have to do is write and say, send me a catalog, and they'll send you a catalog. Also recommend a terrific new comic book. Well, it's not a comic book, actually. It's a graphic novel. It's called Jar of Fools. Jar of Fools, and it's written and drawn by a guy named Jason Lutz. This comic was the talk of the Comic-Con this year, the San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody was saying, this is the hot book the hot in book. Now, it's not superheroes, and it's not mystical stuff like that. It's just a really interesting kind of book, the same way Kyle Baker's Why I Hate Saturn of a couple of years ago was interesting. Now, if you want to order this one, it's called Jar of Fools by Jason Lutz, and I recommend it highly. It's very, very interesting. As long as we're on comic books, best comic in years. Up there with The Sandman, up there with Peter David's Hulk. This is a book called Zombie, X-O-M-B-I. And it's weird, man. This is like Doom Patrol when Grant Morrison took it over and made it real good. It is a very, very hot book. Very exciting, very strange, very surreal. Again, for instance, he said, flipping to the front cover, this character here, she's recurring. She's called the Catholic Schoolgirl. And as you can see, it says, "It was the sound of mist chewing." Very good comic. I urge you to get it. Here's John Crowley's new one, Love and Sleep. It's the sequel to John Crowley's novel, Egypt, and I recommend it. It's very, very good. It's not as good as Egypt, but it's very, very good. One plug for the Comics Buyer's Guide. This is the weekly newspaper of the industry, comics industry. It's got everything in it you could possibly want to know about comics during the week. And it's full of ads, and it's full of all kinds of interesting articles about what's happening in Comics Weekly. It is a must-not-miss reading experience every week if you like comics. I wish I could recommend the best in science fiction. It's not as good as it should be. It's filled with errors, filled with the kinds of errors that perpetuate themselves in other encyclopedic books and reference books in the science fiction field. I guess it's like $50. And it's interesting. It's got some good stuff in it, but it is not as flawless as it ought to be for that kind of money. Okay, so now this is the other thing I want to show you, a terrific new thing to buy. There's this friend of mine up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. His name is Grant Kornberg, and Grant used to have a bookshop called the Hardback Cafe, which is a bookstore and a restaurant. He got out of that business. He now does something called Largely Literary Designs. Largely Literary Design. You don't have to get too close on that. And one of the things that he does in Largely Literary Designs are these incredible posters and jigsaw puzzles called Buried Blueprints. And they're the work of Albert Lorenz, and they're incredible. This is my beautiful wife, and she and I were going to put one of these jigsaw puzzles together for you. So we worked for about 135 hours yesterday. And unfortunately, this is as much as we got done. What we're putting together here is Noah's Ark. That's what it's supposed to look like. And this is as much as we've gotten done. Now, let me tell you how to order these. There's an 800 number. This is real easy. You call 800-543-5453. That number again is 800-543-5453. Great posters, great jigsaw puzzles, and no one else has ever shown them to you. We are the first, and I tell you, they are sensational.